Good morning, everybody. This is Michael Casella. I am a service owner of Zoom in the Pitt IT department of the University of Pittsburgh. Welcome this morning to learning about Zoom. We have online with us the Zoom vendor, Matt Supich, who has been kind enough to come and lend us some of his expertise and teach us a bit about this service.
Thanks, Michael, and hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us again on what I'm sure is a busy Friday. We have about a full hour for you, usually about 40 or 45 minutes of content. So we're getting started a little late, but appreciate the great attendance numbers that we're seeing today. In terms of our agenda for this afternoon, or this morning, I guess, still, we're going to cover really the basics and getting started from scratch, signing in, creating your account, and also managing that from a variety of areas, including settings, your profile, and other areas. We'll get into scheduling in a variety of ways, and then talk about some software that you can use and download, such as our Zoom desktop client and even an Outlook scheduler as well. Finally, we'll get into hosting your meeting, using the mobile app, and then tips for a secure Zoom meeting. And please use our Q&A option in the bottom portion of your window. And for anybody who isn't familiar with Zoom Webinar, you do not have audio or video options from a participant standpoint today. So just sit back and relax and take some notes. You're in view and listen only mode instead of a Zoom meeting where you would have full audio and video and the potential to screen share. In terms of account types, we have a variety of options for you at Pitt, but most everybody is going to fall into one bucket where for a regular meeting, you have 300 individuals that are able to attend your meeting, and that is for students and staff. And faculty will have a higher threshold of up to 500 people in your meeting for your Zoom meeting, so 200 additional folks. Anybody who has a sponsored account will have what we call a basic license with a 100-person capacity, and there is a time limit of 40 minutes for anything larger than a one-on-one meeting. Finally, we do have a webinar option, what we're training on today, but it is a bit different in terms of the style and obviously the delivery method and for the attendees as well. Those are granted on a case-by-case basis for those large-scale events. And then some of you may want to leverage traditional room systems when you're back on campus. We do have those add-ons available for you potentially. Getting started is really easy. Navigate to pitt.zoom.us. You can see that at the top portion of your screen and select the sign in option. Clicking that sign in button will bring you to your Pitt Passport area where you can enter your credentials, that username and password, and sign into your Zoom account. If you're a returning user, it'll do just that. If you're a first-time user, you don't have a Zoom account associated with your Pitt ID, it's actually going to create an account on the fly for you. You'll then be routed to the profile page where you can do a variety of things to build out your account, such as uploading a profile picture that will display in lieu of a live video feed. You may be seeing me on camera in the upper right portion of your Zoom window. If I were to stop my video, you would see a profile picture. It's actually of my dog. Or we would just show your name if you have neither a video nor a profile picture loaded to signify you in the meeting as what we call our active speaker. And we'll talk about that more in just a bit. Other information on this page, you can customize your personal meeting ID and personal link for your available personal meeting space. We definitely recommend using those in a limited fashion or giving them out to only friends or colleagues. They are static. You can change it at any point. You have the edit button on the right side, but these are your go-to personal meeting links. Otherwise, this system will just assign a randomly generated 10-digit meeting ID, or 11 now, for your meetings. You'll see your sign-in email displayed below, and your license type will actually show as license. We just had an update instead of pro. Your meeting capacity should be either 300 or 500 in most cases, as we just discussed. And then you can set your default time zone and language appropriately. So we're in our profile tab in the upper portion of the window. Next, we'll go to our settings menu, and we've zoomed in a bit more here just to show you some specific things. First, there are a lot of settings, and your internal Pitt team has done a great job to kind of curate these to take a lot of the guesswork out of it for you. But in terms of the function on this page, you'll obviously see these settings for a variety of parts of the platform. On the left side, explaining what it is. And then we have a slider on the right. Sliding it to blue means it's enabled. Gray or black means it's disabled. You may see some icons that have a lock function next to those. That means your administrators have locked that setting in either state for a specific reason. Other options on this page include host and participant video. When you are joining a meeting, whether the host or participant video will try to turn on by default if you have a camera. My recommendation is to keep this off and let people manually start their cameras when needed. This is not disabling video for the entire session, just at the outset. Audio types, we have our best practice of 2 types of audio included for your meeting. General telephone dial-in, kind of that old school way to dial in to a conference, is available, and this is informing your invite to include that option. In computer audio, which leverages your internet bandwidth, your microphone and speaker on your computer, maybe a headset like I'm on today. Other options include the ability to chat both publicly and privately in a meeting. We are not leveraging chat today for this large scale event. We are simply utilizing our Q&A feature. So I've seen some questions come through, so please keep leveraging that. But chat is available in a standard meeting. And one thing to consider, if you are a meeting host, you cannot access other people's private chats or save those. The only private chats you would be able to view or save would be those that you are a party to. Other options and kind of best practices. Co-host is a great one to have someone helping out your meeting or webinar. I have a colleague online today helping me with chat or Q&A, and we have some Pitt representatives as well, including Michael on the call here to answer any Pitt questions that may come through. So we're able to leverage them as panelists in this case for webinar, but also co-host in a standard meeting. Polling is also available if you want to build out a set of polling questions and use those during your meeting to get feedback and information and collaboration from your meeting attendees. And another great feature is the ability to put someone on hold simply in like a meeting, in a meeting, but simply like we would on the phone where they cannot hear anyone else. They would go to an area where they cannot view any content, hear, or see anyone else. Other options include the ability to set passwords, and you can set this for your new scheduled meetings, instant meetings, or your personal meeting ID. I recommend leveraging all 3. We all enter passwords for everything on a daily basis. This is just one more thing. I know it's one more thing, but is a great way to secure your meetings and only invite or have the people that you intend to be in your meeting there. Other options include screen sharing. Who can host? I believe the default is to set host only, but this can be changed to allow other participants to share, meaning when you are hosting a meeting that allows you to designate who is sharing, and a co-host, when they are made a co-host in a meeting, can also share outside of the participants area. So you can determine who can share at the outset and who can override a share, which is only the host. And we'll talk about this more in a bit, breakout rooms. That's a great way to have a large meeting and split it out into smaller ones. We don't have that option within webinar just yet, but in a standard meeting, as a host, you can determine breakout sessions and automatically or manually assign them to specific breakout sessions. Finally, waiting rooms. So waiting rooms are a great option to secure your meeting and be able to leverage this in a few different settings. Waiting room is just what you would think. You invite people to your meeting and they settle into a waiting room. They cannot interact with others. They don't know that others are there. And as the host, you can admit them as needed. A great feature, this is a great feature for open office hours if you want to use that and leverage Zoom in many of the scenarios that if you're an instructor, you're having to leverage for distance learning. And you can even go a step further and allow participants who are signed in to their Pitt account, who are part of your organization, to bypass the waiting room and go straight into the meeting if perhaps you're using this for a class or standard meeting. Guests would settle into the waiting room where they could be removed or admitted at the host's discretion. And you can even brand the waiting room and have specific information, including pushing people to sign in to their Pitt account and try to rejoin and bypass the waiting room. And again, this is a great option for virtual office hours. Next up, recording. I know this may show a bit small or hard to read on your screen, but we really want to point you in the right direction here again. We're still within our settings menu, but in a specific recording tab. And all licensed users have the ability, at least by default, for local and cloud recording. Obviously, check internally with the internal documentation if you have questions on which type of recording is available to you. Local recording is saved to your computer, whereas cloud recording is saved to the Zoom cloud and is easily shareable via links, and you can even download it most likely. We'll talk about this at the end of the session as well, but automatic transcription is available for cloud recording to transcribe your audio, and it's even editable in many instances. Next up, scheduling. We're going to talk about scheduling in a few different ways, and we're going to circle back to our Zoom web portal. We were in our profile in our settings area, and we're now in our meetings tab, and you'll be able to view any upcoming meetings or previous meetings that were scheduled with your account, and even schedule a new meeting in this interface as well. We're obviously going to click the blue button that says schedule a new meeting, and we'll go through our steps and checks and add the specific information for scheduling. Our topic, our date and time zone, whether it's a recurring meeting, you can enter all those straight away. One thing I do want to point out with the duration, that's simply informing the calendar invite. Zoom is not going to see an hour duration that you've set and cut off your meeting at 1 hour. You can fall short of that or obviously go over, but hopefully not too far over for the sake of everyone involved. Other options include the ability to leverage that personal meeting ID or My Best Practice. Just let the system do the work and generate an automatic 10 or 11-digit meeting ID for you. One of my best practices, again, is to set a meeting password, and you can set a custom alphanumeric password. And coming this weekend, I believe we'll let you determine the minimum number of characters as well. Another option, video and audio. So we talked about the default settings a few slides back. You can deviate from this on a per meeting basis. So if the meeting would call for video to be on or off by default, you can manage that. And audio as well. You can determine whether you want strictly telephone or better yet, maybe strictly computer audio or a combination of the two. And last but not least, we do have an option for join before host. I would recommend using that in conjunction maybe with a password. Utilizing mute participants upon entry for a large meeting. Keep the audio lines clear, especially in a class or a meeting where people don't realize maybe they're on audio or maybe have a live mic. This will help keep some of that crosstalk to a minimum. Enable the waiting room feature, which we'll touch on more as we go. And then there also is an authenticated users can join option that may be built out for your account to allow only specific individuals who have signed in with their Pitt IDs to join your meeting. Once you're good with all those settings, obviously we're going to click save and lock that in, and then we're going to run down of all those settings, which will be just below off the slide here. But the top part allows you to add this to a calendar of your choosing and create a calendar event, and then you could add other recipients to that. We can also start the meeting from this interface and view the other features if we were able to scroll below. Next up, Zoom does integrate with a few LMS integrations, and there are two that we're going to walk through in a really brief fashion. There's some great information and documentation on some internal sites that will point you, but we're going to get you to the point where you can go ahead and schedule within the two integrations that we'll talk about. And lucky for you, the scheduling interface is pretty much what we just went through in terms of all the different options on the previous few slides. So first, if you're going to add Zoom to Course Web or Blackboard, you can follow the prompts that we see on the screen. So the first step would be to click the plus icon and select the tool link feature. Once that pops up, you want to name the tool link and select the Zoom option from the type dropdown, and you can even check the option if you want to make this available to your users. Once that's available, you're going to see Zoom within the tool links. You can select that, and then you'll be prompted to go through the scheduling process like we just saw in the prior few slides. From a Canvas standpoint, a lot of the same mechanisms are in place where you want to find Zoom within the course menu via the settings and add it to the navigation tab. Once that is drugged through into the proper spot, Zoom will be available within the course menu link, and then you can follow the scheduling options to do that. There are additional LMS resources. This is in the Pitt Canvas Learning Center. There's a getting started with Zoom article with a much more in-depth walkthrough in terms of starting and scheduling. So definitely take a look there. I think we'll make this link available in an easier fashion towards the end of the session, and even some tips and tricks and best practices to conduct your meetings, secure your meetings, and other options as well. And we did have a question about, can you use 2 calendar notifications? They were referring to the Google and Outlook options. You can, but what's actually going to happen is when you click the Google option, it's going to actually add that to your calendar and it's going to pop up. So if you're utilizing 2 different types of calendars, certainly do that. But the calendar event that you're using should be able to be leveraged by anybody using your Google or Outlook calendar on their end. The meeting invite would be compatible and be able to be leveraged to join the meeting. So if you're using both of those, great, but you may just need to only use one or your preferred method, and then add your recipients and send it out as an updated event. Next, we're going to talk about scheduling in one of the aforementioned ways through Microsoft Outlook. So we do have a download option that's available through our download center. You can go to zoom.us/download. Again, zoom.us/download. And we've got 2 downloads we're going to talk about here in pretty quick fashion. First, we're going to talk about the Zoom plugin for Microsoft Outlook, and we'll talk about our meeting client next for your computer. But the Zoom plugin for Microsoft Outlook is really going to introduce Zoom into your scheduling workflow within the Outlook interface. So what that looks like when you've downloaded and installed this option, when you're on Outlook, it's going to add a schedule a meeting option within the tool or ribbon bar on Mac or Windows. If we click the schedule a meeting option or add a Zoom meeting, it's going to walk us through the scheduling workflow that we kind of highlighted a few slides back. We're going to be prompted to look at a few different settings specific for this meeting with our audio and video choices. Perhaps we want to add a password, mute participants upon entry, or even leverage our personal meeting ID. Zoom even also allows you to add what we call alternative hosts. Think of this as a backup host in case you're unable to make your own event. They do have to be a licensed user part of your account. So I could not act as one of your alternative hosts or vice versa, even though we both have Zoom accounts. We are not Zoom licenses, we are not part of the same account. Once you do select the option to schedule, the Zoom information will be added to the agenda, similar to what you all saw today when you joined. It's going to have the ability to join the meeting, likely via a clickable link, or to simply copy and paste it into your browser. Select the telephone options if you wish to call in through there, or a join from the computer audio experience by clicking the link and leveraging your headset or your microphone and speaker. Treat this as you would a normal invite for this point, whether Zoom was in the mix or not. Obviously, check your date and time. Add a location if you're back on campus or able to book a resource or a room. Add your recipients and send it out. If you're not satisfied with what you have or decide you don't want to make a Zoom meeting, we've got remove Zoom meeting or cancel within the interface, or you can even link back to the settings menu we saw on the previous slide to change the settings before sending this out. If you do want to make this a recurring meeting, we ask that you leverage the option within the Outlook interface at this point. When you're scheduling a recurring meeting with the Outlook plugin, Zoom doesn't actually care when that's happening as long as the meeting information is used regularly. So you can set whatever recurrence you'd like, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. We leave that up to the calendar to solve, and the Zoom meeting information will be available if it's been used within the past year. And one thing to note, we're going to talk about our desktop client next, which is the Zoom software that we'll talk about downloading. It works in conjunction with this application. They talk to each other as there's no Zoom sign-in within this interface, and we'll talk about how to download and utilize that feature right now. The Zoom Client is also available within our download center, again, zoom.us/download, and look for the download option. Our newest version just came out this week. We'll highlight that at the end of the section. For Mac and Windows, that's 4.6.10. We do have parity with our Linux client as well, but it is a different version type. Once you do download and install this option, you'll want to click the Sign In button and choose Sign In with SSO or single sign-on to leverage your Pitt credentials. On the next screen, you may be prompted to enter your domain. Simply enter Pitt, or if you don't know the domain, you'll be prompted for your password, and it should leverage your internal Pitt credentials or ask you to sign in with them. Once you sign in, this is the interface you'll see with our Zoom desktop application. You can leverage our new meeting option to spin up a new and instant meeting and invite people to that. Join a meeting by manually keying in the meeting ID and perhaps the password if that's been shared with you. Schedule a meeting with this interface and add it back to your calendar of choosing. And then I'm sharing my content now, but in a different manner. So we're going to ignore this share screen option that leverages our internal Zoom room capabilities for our conference room setup in a wireless share. You can leverage and integrate your calendar and pull in other Zoom meetings that you've been invited to or non-Zoom events from your calendar. And you'll see the rundown of those on the right side of the screen. And if we go to the upper right portion, you may see your profile picture or your initials if you haven't uploaded one. If we click that, you can add a personal note to other Zoom users. Check our settings menu, which we'll touch on momentarily. Set a status that is not informed by your meeting. And if you're in a meeting, it will set a status for you. Check your profile, or better yet, check for updates, which I recommend doing at least monthly. And then you can obviously sign out through here as well. If we click the icon for the gear for our settings menu, we can take a deep dive into some settings. And again, we're going to point you in the right direction for many of these. But this is really how Zoom's going to interact with your computer and leverage your video and audio, screen sharing, and a variety of other features. Our General tab has really similar options between Mac and Windows. There's a few specifics, especially on the Windows side, such as starting Zoom when you boot up Windows, the ability to enter full screen when someone starts sharing or when you join a meeting, a dual monitor mode, which will always have shared content and video separated out if you have that set up. And even on the Mac side, we do support dark mode or using the system setting if that changes on a regular basis. The video option allows you to check and test your video connection. So if this camera, if my camera was available in this screenshot, it would show me instead of this nice backdrop. So I would be there as well. We can use the mirror my video option, touch up my appearance, which is a nice smooth or soft focus for those late night or early morning meetings. And do things like turn off my video when joining a meeting if you'd like to do so at the outset of the meeting. This is an override, meaning when you join a meeting, every time it will be a manual process to join. Finally, we do have something we'll talk about here shortly called Gallery View. This is our grid view. We're dating myself a bit with this reference with the Brady Bunch, where everybody's in their square. This allows you to see up to 49 people or a 7x7 grid view if you have the computer strength, the CPU, to support it. Otherwise, our default will be up to 25 people on the screen at one time, a 5x5 grid. And if you have more than that in your meeting, there will be arrows in the margins to cycle between each group of up to either 25 or 49. Audio options include the ability to use the speaker and microphone testing and select those specific devices. If you have a built-in microphone and speaker or a headset like I'm on today, I'll make sure to toggle that I have the right device on and test that out. And we even have some other options, including joining every meeting muted, which mute microphone when joining a meeting does. I simply have to enable my audio to speak because I want to share that when I'm ready to do so. I've got a dog who likes to bark, so I try to keep that at a minimum. And then even hold the spacebar key when the Zoom window is the one you're interacting with to unmute, kind of in a similar manner to a walkie-talkie if someone's used that before. Finally, we do have our share settings, and we'll talk about sharing in just a bit, but a few things you can point out, and one of my favorites is a side-by-side mode. When you are in a standard meeting and have content and video accessible to you, you can use side-by-side mode to dynamically resize both options to get the ratio to your liking. So you can make the content bigger or smaller, and that will impact the video and vice versa. I saw a question under the video, does the mirror my video change the way I look to others or just to myself? So to actually change the way you look to others, think of when you're writing something and it will show as mirrored potentially. So you can have that or unmirrored, so as normal, but you would want to mirror it so it is readable if you are writing something and holding it up to your camera. Sometimes it will be inverted, so that the mirror option will fix that if you are writing something and holding it up on your camera as well. Next up, hosting a Zoom meeting. So gone through all the scheduling and settings, we'll get into the good stuff here with how to host and manage your own Zoom meeting. First, just like we did today, since we have audio and video capabilities, I have to choose my audio or set a default to what I'm going to use each time. We have telephone audio, which is in the invite, computer audio as well, and I'm leveraging that. I'm using a headset with my built-in excuse me, with my bandwidth and my Zoom client. So it's leveraging the internet to transmit my audio. So I join with computer audio each time. It's quick, it's easy, it's effective, and I don't have to dial in on a telephone, something I really hate. But you can leverage the phone call option. That information would appear here if I select this option, or via the invite, of course, it'll be there, and you can dial in the proper number and put your meeting ID, perhaps a password and a participant ID to join your audio and video together and take up one spot in the meeting. If you are leveraging waiting room, this is the interface you'll see, and I'm putting this up front because this would be probably one of your first steps after joining a meeting as a host. So this is how it will appear when you have people both in the waiting room and participants already admitted to the meeting. You'll have a separation between the two, and you can see people who have clearly joined the waiting room and are waiting to be admitted, or you can actually remove them from the waiting room. Message them, tell them maybe you're running a few minutes late, especially for like an office hours option, say 5 minutes, something like that, and then admit all if you want to do that. You can even demote someone from the meeting back to the waiting room as well. And it can even be configured, as I talked about earlier, that signed in users to your Pitt account will be able to bypass the waiting room if you have let them. Meeting controls include the ability to manage really the entire interface. So we're going to start with our viewing options. The default view we see here when no one's sharing content is what we call active speaker mode. The active speaker mode is the main speaker or the person who has last spoken in the meeting in the main portion of the window. So it's going to dynamically switch in a not too fast, not too slow fashion between who's speaking. Others can be viewed in the thumbnails at the upper portion of the screen, or we'll toggle next to our gallery view option momentarily, which is that grid view I talked about. As a host, if you want to see the meeting information very quickly, you can click the little eye or information icon to get the meeting link and other information. Or in the bottom left portion of the window, you can see the mute audio or unmute audio, start or stop video, and the up arrows or carets allow you to make sure to choose or ensure that you've selected the proper device that you are using in the meeting, especially if you have multiple options available. You can even test those out as well. Other options include the ability to end the meeting if you're the host, or simply leave the meeting if you're an attendee. And then we can also toggle to our gallery view option in the upper right corner as well. Here's what that gallery view option looks like. Some of you may have seen this already if you've used Zoom meetings in the past. It's a really great way to kind of get that classroom, conference room feel where everybody's on screen at once. You can kind of read reactions and faces, and it's great to a point. Obviously, with up to 49 people, it's quite a bit, but you may like that. 25 is kind of my sweet spot, that 5x5 grid, but you can manage that as needed. If this isn't to your liking, or maybe not a lot of people are leveraging video, you can always toggle back in the upper right corner to the speaker view option. Next up, if you're a host, you can click Start Recording if you do want to record the meeting. That is a host-only right and responsibility. So if you click the record option towards the lower right portion of our Zoom window, by default, it will be a 2-click process. Click record and then choose the type of recording that you want to leverage. Again, cloud recording is stored in the Zoom cloud. It's shareable via link. It's downloadable as well. Whereas local recording will save to your computer. Once the meeting ends, it will ask you to start converting the recording and save it to your computer. It's a high quality. They're both good options, but the local recording is a bit more cumbersome to share since it's a full-fledged file. You can obviously upload it to third-party media storage options and share it out that way too. Once the recording is enabled, the host can pause or stop the recording. We should have a visual indicator as well. And in this meeting, you would have seen and heard a consent option. Since Pennsylvania is a 2-party state, the consent options, I believe, are on and locked by default for your cloud recordings. Next up, our meeting management tab. You can select the Manage Participants tab as a host to manage your participants, of course. The ability to manage your participants is really kind of a one-stop area at this point. We'll talk about a security tab at the end of our session today, but you can see clearly who has audio and video connected, and we'll see that as the meeting fills out. As others join, we can mute all or unmute all in bulk, or select the More option to mute participants upon entry, determine if we want to allow participants to unmute themselves, have an enter and exit chime as people come and go, or one of my best practices, not allow participants to rename themselves, lock the meeting if needed, and even put participants in waiting room that can be toggled on or off throughout the session if you want to leverage the waiting room at some point and not at others. Once others join, we can see that they are in the Participants tab. The red slash through each logo simply means it's muted or off, not sharing audio or video. And I can hover over individuals and click the More option to chat with them individually, prompt them to start their video. We can never force someone's video on for security reasons. I could transfer my host rights to someone else, but better yet, make them a co-host. I saw a question in the Q&A about this. You would simply click the More option and select Make Co-host to promote someone in meeting to have them help you run things in a host-like manner. You can rename someone, put them back into the waiting room, or even remove someone entirely, and they would not be able to rejoin your meeting. As we talked about earlier, in-meeting chat is available by default. If you want to turn that off or even disable private chat, that is an option for you. Again, a host or co-host can never see or save any private chats that they are not a part of. If you are saving your chat as a host, make sure to remember that the chat is in one screen or one flow, as we'll look at in a second. So if you were chatting both publicly and privately, those would both be in the chat transcript. So you want to make sure to clean that up if you are sharing that out or adding it to meeting minutes or whatever the case may be. If we click the chat option, you can see again, we've got public and private chats within the same window for your convenience. As a host, you can click the little 3-dot ellipses to potentially save the chat if that's available to you, or determine how the chat will function, whether it's off or on at all, whether it's host and participant only between the two, it's a public chat, or public and private are both on the table. And you can leverage this throughout the session as needed if you want to. Choose who you're chatting with from the dropdown, whether it's an individual or a group. We don't have anything in between, so it's one-on-one or with everyone. And then choose to enter your message in the main portion of the window. Next up, breakout rooms. So breakout rooms are a really important option and really highly used option within education. So we do have a breakout rooms tab at the bottom of the screen. I know the screenshot's a little small, but trust me, it's there on the right side. As a host, if I click breakout rooms, I am the person who can manage the breakout rooms and divide people up manually or automatically. Zoom will do some quick math for you depending on the number of participants, but you can engineer this to a certain extent and choose a manual or automatic option, and then click Create Breakout Rooms, especially on the manual side, to determine who's in what breakout session. We can clearly see we've got 4 and 4 in each section, but we can exchange or even move people to change the numbers around as well. I can move someone to another group or exchange them with someone else as needed. I can even add another room if I decide I maybe want to have smaller breakout sessions and do that appropriately. Within the Options tab, we can set some other parameters, such as move them into participants into breakouts automatically, allow them to return the main session at any point, close the sessions after a certain period of minutes, and even have a notification to the host to stay on track. Once you do close the breakout rooms, have a countdown for up to 2 minutes or as little as 10 seconds to pull them back into the meeting. Once the breakout rooms are in session, as the host and even a co-host, you can pop in and out of the specific breakout sessions. You can leave another breakout session and join another if you'd like to. You can even use the broadcast message to broadcast some directions, maybe the next topic to discuss, or let people know 5 minutes remaining, and that will go out to everyone and appear within their Zoom screen. From a participant standpoint, you have all the features that you would from a participant standpoint, including sharing audio and video and potentially sharing content. If you do want to record the breakout session, the host does have to give a specific person in the sessions local recording privileges, as cloud recording does not record the breakout sessions, only the main session at this point. Anybody in the breakout session can ask for help of the host, and there will be an option to invite them to the breakout session for assistance. From a host standpoint, you will see that the person who has requested the help, their breakout session, and the ability to dismiss this and join later, or join the breakout session at that point. Next up, sharing content. So sharing content is available by default for the host, and we'll want to make sure we check those settings and have the ability to share only for the host or extend that to other participants. And you can also create a co-host and have them share and not extend it to other participants as needed. The sharing option is in the middle portion of the window. It's green, it's pretty hard to miss, but there is a caret icon or some advanced sharing settings right next to it. If you click this option, we can go to advanced sharing options and double check what our sharing settings are, determining who can initiate a share, who can share at the same time, which I recommend just keeping as one, since you can only see one participant shared content at the same time. And also, a host can always override anybody else's share. So if you've granted to a co-host or participants to share into a meeting, the host can always stop or override that at any point. Once you are sharing or want to share, we'll go ahead and click Share Screen. And then we'll get a grid of all the different eligible options to share, whether it's an entire desktop, so you're sharing your entire screen or display. If you can see it on the screen, others will as well. So it's nice to be able to drag things on or off the screen or have multiple applications at the same time. But if you're getting instant messaging pop-ups, email notifications, those will be visible on screen. Those will be caught up in the recordings, so please keep that in mind. Zoom does offer a whiteboard for virtual whiteboarding and annotation. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Or you can share a specific application. I'm sharing a PowerPoint presentation today. I've got other applications going on. I've seen email pop-ups come through, but they have not appeared in this screen sharing because I am only sharing from PowerPoint from that application. You can select Google Chrome, Firefox, Excel. Any application that you see here would only show the data from that application. Zoom even allows you to share both audio and video across the platform. So let's say you have a YouTube clip you want to share in a meeting. Have that pulled up on your browser ready to go. Select that browser window from the grid and choose Share Computer Sound to share your native computer sound. And if you're going full screen, optimize for full screen video clip to bump up the frame rate. Make sure to have your computer not muted. We need to have some available sound as we're sharing your native computer sound into the meeting. and your sound is not coming out of your speakers into your microphone and back into the meeting, it's going to be the clearest possible sound. So make sure your computer is not muted. If we click share, we're able to then share our content, of course, and the toolbar that we've seen at the bottom of the screen actually relocates to the top by default. Manage yourself with the video and audio options on the far left, manage participants via pop-out as well, or even start a new share, which allows you to transition from an application like PowerPoint to another application like Excel and have a nice transition between the two, and you're not going to stop and start and reshare again. So it's more of a kind of polished way to do it. Pause your share. So pause it if you need to make a correction, check ahead what's next. You can essentially freeze the frame so there's no updates until you resume the share. And finally, annotation is available by default in the meeting. You can lock this off for your attendees if you've got some overzealous artists out there, but you can select the annotation feature and use a variety of options. I'm leveraging the spotlight tool that's been trailing my mouse. You can draw freehand or use specific shapes, text, or use even an arrow option, which is a sub option within the spotlight area to have an arrow populate on the screen wherever you click. You can save this if it's a particularly good whiteboarding session or annotation session, or in the more option, you can disable an attendee annotation or show the names of those who are annotating if either one is appealing to you. Within the more option, you can leverage breakout rooms. Oh, sorry about that. Let me back up. You can leverage breakout rooms, chat, or even end the meeting, all while still sharing content. Next up, once your meeting ends, you'll want to manage the recording. If you're doing a local recording, you should have a window pop up after the meeting ends that asks you to essentially double click to convert the local recording, and it will save to your computer and can be watched after that. If you are using the cloud recording, there will be a processing time, and it will send a notification to your inbox for a link to be shared publicly or with whoever you like, and a link for your host to access on your Zoom web portal to manage and even edit to a certain extent. If you've selected the host option, or if you go to your recording tab back in the Zoom web portal, you can get a rundown of all your cloud recordings, or even locate your local recordings if they're stored on that computer. Click the topic on the right or on the left side to view the details. You can edit the topic if you'd like, watch the playback via the film strip icon, download if available to you, and even copy a shareable link to share it out with others. Otherwise, you can access sharing details via the share option in the upper right. If we click that, you can set some ground rules for your recording, whether it's publicly accessible or to view. They need to be part of your account and therefore be signed in when accessing it. Whether viewers can download it at all, or even create a quick registration form to track who's watching this from an on-demand setting. Right now, you do have some advanced features for tracking watching based on the number of views and downloads, but it does not tie back to a specific user at this point. Another recommendation would be to password protect it, and you can set a custom password if you wish. And then copy and paste anything in the gray box and disperse this out however you want through an email, an instant message, whatever you'd like to do. And the recording will be available for viewing via your favorite browser based on the rules you've set. Prior to that, though, you can make some more edits. We do have the audio transcription option I kind of referenced at the beginning that is specific to cloud recordings only. We're leveraging this today, and basically the recording is not only capturing our audio and video in the traditional sense, but also leveraging that through an audio transcription option, which accompanies the playback of the meeting. You can see it on the right side here. As a host, you can edit each passage if you wish to make sure that the transcription is accurate. Depending on how clearly you speak, technical jargon, slang, accents, those all come into play a bit, but it is pretty handy and a great way to utilize the cloud recording in this manner. If you click the pencil icon, you can simply edit the different passage and it will show up in the audio transcript on the right side, or someone can even click the CC or closed captioning option to transport the captioning on screen. This is not ADA compliant, I must tell you. It does not rise to that threshold, so you would have to use other options if you do need to meet those needs. One other thing, we do have a set playback range option, which allows you to snip the beginning and ends of the playback for watching online. So we've all been in meetings where it may take a few minutes to get settled, or you're taking roll, but it may be recording already, or the end, maybe we don't need specific information as part of our recording. Anybody watching the recording online via the link will be subject to your playback range settings. If you are allowing download, they're getting the full file in the playback range settings. If you're snipping the beginning in, it will not come into play. Finally, our mobile apps are available in the places you would expect. Google Play, the Apple App Store. Look for Zoom Cloud Meetings. That's the name of the application. The blue and white logo is what you're looking for. It is, of course, made by Zoom. And the interface, we're not going to go into it today, but it's really similar on both your tablet and phone devices to what we saw earlier within the Zoom desktop client. Make sure to leverage your single sign-on option by entering Pitt as your domain or simply your email if you forget that. And it will leverage your internal Pitt credentials and walk you through the steps properly. You can start a meeting, join a meeting. You can even host a meeting from your mobile, although I recommend it from a computer if at all possible. But the features, most of the features are there and in parity with our other applications and areas of the platform. Finally, we want to end or get close to an end on some best practices for secure meeting. We want to make sure that your meetings are secured. You're aware of the steps to take to have a good and productive meeting. First, before the meeting, add a password to the meeting. It's something, again, we use on a regular basis for everything else. So adding a password and making it a non-sequential password is definitely a recommendation for your meetings. Users will be prompted to enter that to join the meeting. Do not share meeting information, including the meeting link or passwords publicly or on social media. Can't stress that enough. And then hosting the meeting, ensuring sharing is defaulted to host only if that fits your needs, or knowing where to go to turn that off, and we'll make that easy on our next slide here. Disable participants' ability to rename themselves if that can get confusing. Promote a co-host to help manage the meeting, and you can have multiple co-hosts. I promoted my colleague today to help run things, but we can have multiple people doing that if you have the need or the willing participants. Use the waiting room feature to allow invited attendees only to join if you'd like to, or to manage who can join the meeting. And then one thing we really didn't talk much about, but there's a lock meeting option, which is a hard stop. Even invited attendees, if you've already locked the meeting, they will not be allowed to enter. And finally, stay in control, mute participants upon entry, use other features, including the mute option in meeting, stop a participant's video if they're being distracting or inappropriate. You can put that person on hold or even remove them from the meeting or demote them back to a waiting room if that's being used. Some internal resources and support. So your Pitt team has done a great job to build out a lot of great internal resources within the IT section. Zoom video conferencing is the first one here that we can see, including some quick links and guides, even etiquette and best practices for online meetings, audio transcript and closed captioning, and then some help resources are all there. The URL's on the page. We may be able to communicate a shorter URL to you. Otherwise, we'll be able to get that out here shortly. And then some great training resources. We do have live and recorded trainings aside from this that are available through our training team. This I'll link to that as well. And this training we did mention at the beginning, and you should have heard and seen the prompt. This is being recorded. It will be disseminated out one way or another. By the way, I've seen that question come up a few times. In terms of other resources, Zoom has, of course, our own support resources. You can go to support.zoom.us. We've got a lot of easy to digest topics and quick 1 and 2 minute videos, or even longer, more in-depth trainings and videos and how-tos. Use the keyword searches. There's other areas where you can take a look, whether it's scheduling, meeting, testing out, or managing audio or video, or even diving deep into passwords, breakout rooms, waiting room, all that good stuff. And if you need help, I know you've got your internal help resources, but Zoom is here for you as well. We do have 24/7 customer support for chat, call, or submitting a request via email as well. And finally, we did have a release on Wednesday with our most up-to-date version. I referenced this a little bit ago. 4.6.10 is the newest version for Mac and Windows. Linux is also in parity, but a different version number. We've added a security icon to the main interface and removed the invite option to the participants area. The security icon allows you to get in a quick glance, the ability to lock the meeting, turn on waiting room, or turn it off, and then what participants are allowed to do in the meeting, including sharing content, chatting, renaming themselves, or even annotating on a shared screen. And finally, you can even remove participants from that window as well. So this is really a way for us to consolidate a lot of features that were scattered throughout the interface, or for a lot of users, you just simply didn't know where to go because you were new to the platform. So we've tried to make it easy for you and condense it down into one tab. So that's the security option on the far left, and that is visible to the host only. So keep that in mind. So with that, I just want to say thank you. We saw some great attendance today. We've had some great questions throughout. You can keep connecting with us at our blog at zoom.us, blog.zoom.us. You can go to support.zoom.us as well, and then we've got those great internal Pitt resources. But with that, I do want to turn it over to Michael. I'll put you on the spot here, Michael, to see if you've got anything else to add or any themes that you've seen that you want to call out for the better of the group.
Thank you very much, Matt. There are a few items that I do want to pull attention to here. In the chat window, I did drop a link that'll compare some Zoom, Skype, and Teams features that we've developed here at the university. It's going to be on the technology.pitt.edu site, but the full link is listed in chat. Also, just to reemphasize, if you have previously downloaded the Zoom desktop client, please make sure to update that so that you can take advantage of the latest security features. And any additional questions that you have can also be directed to the Pitt IT help desk at any point. Thank you very much for attending, and Matt and Giselle, thank you very much for hosting this. This has been a wonderful time.
Thanks, Michael. Our pleasure. And I would just encourage folks, if you're new to the platform or just not familiar with a lot of the settings we talked about today, spin up a meeting with a friend or colleague and get used to the different features. And I think you'll find it pretty easy to use, especially with the addition of that security tab. We've brought a lot of those critical pieces together in kind of a one view area. So definitely jump into a meeting or two, have fun with it, and hopefully you find this as a valuable and impactful tool, whether you're just hopping on meetings, chatting with colleagues, or even teaching courses on it. So with that, I'll say happy Friday. Thanks for joining, and happy Zooming. Thank you.